you in just a moment. But first I wanted to let you know that if you're interested in purchasing CEUs for today's program, there is a link under the video window to purchase CEUs. That link will remain active during the program and will also be sent to you in a follow-up email. Also, there's a link to the Compassion Fatigue Kit. I'm sure Ryan's going to mention that. I'll also plug it again at the end of the program. If at any time you're interested in asking questions or submitting other feedback during the program, please use the chat window underneath the video window. Right next to the button, the blue button that says Say, type your question or your comment, click the word Say. You shouldn't have to log in or anything. You should only have to give yourself a nickname the first time you do it. You may ask questions at any time during the program. As I see them come in, I'll raise my hand and ask him of Ryan on your behalf. So please take advantage of that opportunity as well. So now I'd like to introduce Ryan Lindsay. We welcome him back. We had him here a couple years ago doing a similar topic. He's the clinical director of the St. Louis Center for Family Development, a mental health services agency providing evidence-based and trauma-informed mental health services to individuals and families with severe behavioral, emotional, and psychiatric needs. He has extensive experience working with individuals with emotion dysregulation disorders and the use of dialectical behavioral therapy. Ryan's currently a consultant for adolescent DBT development for the Missouri Department of Mental Health and provides training, consultation, and support to teams across Missouri. He's also regularly featured as a presenter and a trainer on various topics and has presented at many local, state, and national conferences. And Ryan, the floor is yours. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you joined us today. It's a little weird for me because I got two people in this room and the rest of the world out there. So I don't know who's all joining us today, but I'll do my best. What I want everyone to actually start with is we're going to actually start with an exercise. So everybody out there, I'm going to kind of get in your seat, kind of sit up. I need you to get you a piece of paper out and something to write with. You probably all have that out anyways because you're going to be taking notes, copious, detailed notes, because you don't want to miss anything today. And what I want you to do is just close your eyes for a moment. Okay. And I want you to just take a few deep breaths in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Now I want you to think about, draw up in you, what drew you to your profession? What part of you is activated by the work that you do? Can you find that place inside you? That part that just keeps you showing up every day. And I want you to open your eyes, and I want you to just write down one statement. What is it? What is it activated? What keeps you showing up? Just one quick statement. The first thing that comes to your mind. Doesn't even have to be a complete thought. For most of us, we see people suffer, and we wish to see them suffer less. We're in a helping profession because we care for others. We are here, we see it, we work lots of hours, lots of it unpaid. We're in professions probably that make lots less money than, a lot of other professions we could be making. But really it's that ability to see and feel the suffering of others that really drives us in our work. It's our desire to see the suffering lessen. Okay? It's our sensitivity to others' pain. We see it. We walk out into a crowd and we can see pain in other people. It's our desire to change that because we don't like it when other people are in pain. It's our ability to have empathy for others, to be able to understand them, to see where they come from and how they possibly could make it end up where they're at in their lives. It's our kindness that we have for others. We care. And the warmth that we bring to our relationships. For most of us in the helping profession, this is what drives our work and our passion. Compassion really is at the heart of what we do. You know, it's that engine. It's everything inside us that keeps us going. But that compassion is also the very thing that drives us out of the profession. Because compassion involves feeling other people's pain and noticing other people's pain. Okay? When we're faced with extremely difficult, oftentimes chronically emotionally painful experiences, our desire to help often comes with an ugly reality. We end up oftentimes taking the responsibility for other people's actions, lives, and pain. Okay? What this is we end up in a place where we want to help so much that we then become the conduit for change. We become the person responsible for the change, and we forget that we're working with other people. We oftentimes become attached to the outcomes of our clients, okay, or the people we're working with. This really being the indicator of our success in our jobs or not. When people get better, that means I must be a good clinician or case manager or nurse or anyone else in the helping profession. When we see our clients change or the people we work with change, then we are a success. We become attached to these things. But when we're in the business of helping others change their lives or behaviors, what we have to actually pay attention to is what is our role in it and what is their role in it. And because of this, we can lose compassion. We're actually at great risk of losing compassion when we have the definition of success in our jobs based in the behavior of another human being. Because we really can't. We can't control what other people do. So we may begin to get annoyed at our clients when they fail to make gains if you're in treatment, or they don't follow up with things, or you make a recommendation and they don't do what you ask them to do, and we may get annoyed. And we lose our compassion with that when this happens over and over. Most of the people we work with have extremely complex lives. And so one recommendation may not translate to it showing up in their lives. But we get annoyed because we're actually attached to whether or not they follow up. Okay? How good we are at our jobs is really about what behaviors they engage in. That's what happens. We make that attachment. So compassion in essence. So if we're going to be talking about compassion fatigue, we got to talk about what is compassion and how does compassion play into the role and what we do in our jobs. And in essence, it's that ability to see and understand another's pain. But then it's coupled with this need or desire to end that pain. Compassion usually doesn't come without the, I wish this was less. I wish you had less pain. Compassion is really an important piece. You know, it's interesting, when I got asked to do the compassion fatigue piece, I don't know, I've been doing a lot of actually reading on compassion recently. I've been doing some reading Paul Gilbert's Compassionate Mind, and looking at, you know, I don't know if it's like on the heels of a really nasty election and the constant viewing of like, I feel like, you know, the world has lost a little bit of compassion. How do we get in this place that we lose so much compassion for other people? So what we do is we have both of these pieces, okay? You know, it's that need to end or reduce others' pain that really actually sets us on the path towards compassion fatigue. Because we've got something at stake here. You know, we have an agenda here, okay? Compassion fatigue is actually made up of lots of different factors. And I'm not actually even going to go into all the big factors of that. But globally, what this is, it's really about a loss of compassion for those that you work with. We lose that compassion, okay? It's not lost forever. It kind of just takes a break for a bit. And it's hard for us to access at times. But it also involves the loss of joy in the work that we do hopefulness, and energy. Okay? Our energy level goes down. Our hopefulness, our ability to see that actually this really difficult person that I'm working with, in terms of the complexities of their life, we stop having hope that they can actually make the changes that they could make in their lives. Okay? So that was what drove us before. It's kind of like things are getting caught and slowing us down. Compassion fatigue truly is a spectrum. Compassion fatigue starts from anywhere from I have none to I'm so burnt out I can't even access any joyful, hopeful, or helpful experiences to translate into the work that I do with my clients. And so at any time you're in a helping profession, you lie somewhere on the spectrum. Okay, so from extremely fatigue to very little. Okay, and we are at constant risk of losing compassion because we're human. As humans, we cannot always put out energy. Compassion requires energy. Giving requires us to always be curious, interested, and emotionally show up every day and every moment we're with our clients or the people we work with. However, if you do any kind of the work that I do, which I'm sure many of you all do, when we are often faced with maybe rejection, denial, or refusal to accept help over and over and over, we often become disillusioned because it's so complex. Anyone's change in their life is complex, and it's not easy. And it makes sense that we would get disillusioned because it's normal. The thing that brought us to our profession, our ability to see suffering and want it to be less, compassion, is missing that reinforcing factor of seeing people make changes. And so the thing that brings us to our profession also needs to be reinforced occasionally to stick around and keep doing what we're doing. And so our efforts at trying to help people often then may end up being punished because we're not seeing changes. Then we become frustrated and we begin to become judgmental. And that's the consequences. The consequences are becoming judgmental as a clinician or a helper, non-caring, and frankly uninterested in understanding people. When we find ourselves being judgmental, this person should do this, should do that, or not caring whether or not they get better or not, or just frankly uninterested in hearing why they ended up in the situation that they didn't do what we talked about doing the last time we met. This is a sign that we got to stop, take a look at ourselves and say, what's going on? Where's my compassion? Have I lost it? Did I lose it? Is it down the street? Do I need to go find it? What do I need to do here? Meanwhile, most people that come into the helping profession, if you're able to see the pain of others, we're actually usually more comfortable in the pain of others. Okay? So we tend to actually put the needs and the pain of everyone else in our lives first. Okay? It's kind of like this motto. Take care of them, and if I have any energy left, I'll do something for myself. Okay? Because we see it in others, and we feel like we're okay having it, and we'll get to it eventually. Eventually, sometime down that road, we'll do that. Or maybe helping others just function solely to prevent looking at our own needs. Some of us have a really hard time taking a look at our own needs and what we need and the nurturing that we need in our daily lives. For the kind of work that many of us do, particularly I'm in mental health, I hear lots of really horrible things. And I work with people who have really horrible lives. And in comparison, their lives are way worse than my life. And so putting them first is a really easy thing. I had a conversation the other day with my partner, and he wanted me to show up someplace, but he gave me the wrong time. And so I scheduled a client that I'm doing trauma work with. And so there's something really important in our relationship that I needed to be there, but he gave me the wrong information. And so when I said I couldn't go, it was this big deal. And what my partner wanted to say was that me showing up was more important than this person's time with me, which I wanted to say we're doing trauma work here. Do you really want to know what's going on here? Okay, but I had to actually take a look at it and say, what's more important here? My relationship, me, or this client? And they're both extremely important. But I can't be good with my clients and not with my own relationships. So, taking care of our own pain and misery and suffering, if we're always taking care of others, we lose that for ourselves. So not only do we lose compassion for the clients we work with, we actually lose compassion for ourselves. Compassion fatigue is actually really about not taking care of our own self. It's ending up in a place where compassion has been lost within ourselves. And then it's difficult to access that of others. When we enter the helping profession, I really believe our institutions have done us a disservice. I really think they lack the attention to this topic that it really truly needs. It's not that institutions, and I've gone to very fine institutions, and I've had phenomenal teachers, I've had phenomenal people in my lives teach me. But I don't think what happens is they don't emphasize this piece enough. How to take care of our own pain and suffering in order for us to take care of other people's pain and suffering. They're not teaching us how to check in with ourselves. But more importantly, what they're not doing is doing this in a meaningful way. It doesn't teach us to look inside ourselves. It doesn't give us permission, and they don't describe this as a totally normal process. That this is actually essential to the work that we do. So we do talk about it, and there's a little bit in my program. Other programs may be actually way better at it than the program that I was in. But, when we're new to a profession, when we're students, we need this information encoded way earlier. We need our people who are responsible for teaching others to really pay attention to compassion fatigue, and that knowing when others are at risk for this, and teaching how to check in on ourselves. And that's okay if we actually have a response, who I'm on call for coaching calls, and I have a response, and my response is, ugh. That is okay and normal. That doesn't mean I answer the phone, ugh. That I can have this response. Because at the beginning of our profession, we think that we shouldn't have those responses. We shouldn't have normal human processes. Okay? When we actually look at our developmental trajectory, when we first enter this profession, this is actually our biggest at-risk period for compassion fatigue and burnout. And more importantly, I think what happens is people leave the profession. If you look at research, the amount of people that leave after the first 5 years in particularly social work, it's a huge amount. It's like a huge drop-off. And in our trajectory, we're excited, we're impassioned, we're full of energy, and frankly, we are in it because we want to make a difference. We're very idealistic. We want to make sure that what we do is making an impact, and I want to see it, and then when we don't see it, then we think that there's something wrong with ourselves, and that we've done something wrong. At the beginning of our profession, we're really out there to prove ourselves, that we're worthy, we're helpful, and most importantly, competent. And most people at the beginning of their profession fear being incompetent. Because the reality is we're all incompetent at all times. And we're especially incompetent when we come into the profession, because how could you possibly know all there is to know? It's just impossible. Years of experience, knowledge building builds on each other, and everything we learned then is just as crucial as what we learn now. But we don't want other people to know it. What we have here is a lack of ability to be vulnerable. And being compassionate towards yourself is about allowing yourself to be vulnerable to oneself, but also to others. Okay? So, my own experience. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience that might give you an idea of kind of what this turns into. I had my own why compassion fatigue is so important to me to talk about and get it out there is because I had my own experience with it. After 5 years in the profession, I was ready, it's probably more around 3 years, ready to just make my exit. So, you got to know a little bit about who I am. If I asked the people closest to me in my life, I have an employee here in the room, if I asked her to describe me, I'm sure she would use Things like hardworking, driven, passionate, and most importantly, hard-headed and stubborn. She knows that, and the people in my life know that. Okay? I'm someone that really pays attention and recognizes the opportunities that have been brought to me and that have popped up in my life, but I also set really super high goals, and I really stop at nothing to achieve them. And so this is an okay thing to have. Doesn't sound too terrible if it's not mastered. Okay? When you have these drives, when you have this sense of making a big impact, when you want to see this stuff happen in your life, and it's not mastered, we do all kinds of things that especially ignore our own needs. 10 years ago, not so mastered. I'd have to say today, I have this fairly well-tuned. I fall out occasionally. But most importantly, I have to pay attention to that there's nothing wrong to have those things. I just have to look at it with compassion. If I ever want a life that's filled actually with satisfaction, I need to do that. Because for me, a lot of my attributes are about achievement. And then it's like, okay, what's the next thing? With no satisfaction and like kind of let's revel in this achievement, it's okay, I achieved. Now what's the next thing? It's never enough. It's like this constantly consuming thing. This took a lot of work after I fell out in my compassion fatigue. Great therapy that I had to really get back on track to decide how am I going to make a difference in my profession. So take those attributes and drop it into the context of higher learning. Okay, so I went to a pretty good school, and that I won't name, and I was dropped into the middle of some of the smartest doctors, nurses, academics, and social workers around. These are the people that are, publishing left and right. They're at the forefront of their industry, and really, basically everyone around was out there to prove themselves, that I have an expertise in something. And that I might know something more than you. And so from someone who has the attributes that I have, I'm like, this is lovely, I love this. From an academic and clinical training, I mean, like, there couldn't be anything better. I was just sucking it up, but it was competitive and cutthroat. Okay, and so what happened, though, there's a downside to that, okay? I am grateful for every moment that I got in that setting. But what never got modeled, and what took a long time to be able to model myself, was humility, fallibility, and vulnerability. These things are a part of being okay and being compassionate towards oneself. So humility, fallibility, and vulnerability allow me to make mistakes and fail in my achievements because I can take a look at it and say, oh, that didn't work out so well. What can I do better next time? And I'm also not a horrible therapist because of it. Okay? It's not defining me. Okay? So what happens in these situations is that we don't learn that. And at the beginning of our careers, we really need that. Some of us might have actually been, I really believe my supervisors were wonderful in this. And in fact, they were probably they were on it. But I overrode that. I didn't listen. Because I don't believe that the way in which we talk about it says this is actually really normal and it's okay to be vulnerable. And I really think that that's one of the things that we need to do. Luckily, when I finished, I still had lots of energy because I was young. I don't have that energy anymore. Okay, I'm very regulated on my energy level. And so it really wasn't until I left this academic health center and I went out into kind of the real world, and that's when I started feeling it. Okay. My training is really in the treatment of individuals who are chronically suicidal and self-injurious. So the work that I do really does have life or death consequences. If I'm not really good at what I do, someone may die. And so I had to be good because I was not risking messing up. And having someone in my life that I feel responsible for end up dead. There was no way that I could do that. So that was my drive to keep going in that direction. Okay. At that point, though, people were looking to me as an expert and advice on how to work with the same clients I was working with. So asking for help was a little bit difficult, and it wasn't modeled. And so I took on that responsibility of getting my clients better. And if they didn't, I blamed myself, I blamed my incompetence, and I really blamed my lack of skill. So I really started to become attached to the outcomes of my clients. That's what defined whether or not if I was good as a therapist or not. And you would think that, after I stopped taking care of myself, stopped eating healthy, exercising as someone I've always ate healthy, exercised a lot, I'm an avid tennis player, play music all the time, and when I was really getting to this point where all I wanted to do was come home at night, pray to God that nobody called me for a coaching call, and watch as many Law & Order as I possibly can, and don't anybody talk to me. Okay? I got to that point. So I gained 30 pounds. I didn't really want to get up in the morning to go to work. I also lived in Michigan, so I'm not really sure if it was that or just there was no sun. But I just really started beginning to hope that my clients canceled. Because all I wanted to do, I had a couch in my office, all I wanted to do was take a nap on that couch. And I was praying for that to happen. You'd think that all that stuff would say, hey, Ryan, take a look at yourself. You need to take care of yourself because you're wearing yourself down. But I was young, I was naive, I was goal-oriented, achievement-oriented, and frankly, I lacked the compassion for myself to be able to recognize that this thought in my head, everyone else seems to be able to do it, why can't I? So I just need to suck it up. Needed to be attended to. I really thought that there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't do it. If I was, I worked my entire career to get this, and I've achieved this, and, I couldn't do it. So there must be something wrong with me, and I'm just going to have to keep going, and eventually that desire and that understanding would show up. So these beliefs and non-compassionate statements is really actually what kept me going. I'm very stubborn. I won't give it up. So luckily it did. Okay? But it, frankly, kept me from asking for help. It was staring me in the face. I had I was at a place where I had to do something different or get out. Do something different or get out. And what did I do? One, I found a really good therapist to be able to help me with that. But two, I started to reclaim my purpose. I asked myself, what is the purpose of the work that I do? Ryan, what is the purpose of the work that you do? Why do you do what you do? Took me a few drafts, a lot, okay, to get to really the heart of why I do what I do. And really for me, what I was focused on is creating a space for individuals, if they want to step on this journey with me, to change their lives. And that my job was really to increase my therapeutic skill set to the highest competency that I could get it to. So if people showed up in my office and were willing to participate on this journey, I could help them the best to my ability. But what I didn't have here was the responsibility for others' behaviors. Being attached to, I'm responsible for other people behaving in the way that they do. When I separated that out of my, mission statement for my work that I do, then I realized that I can still keep doing and going on, and I can let go of this responsibility. So my purpose was to help people who show up. And it's my job to be able to show up in that room with them. And so it was time to take the little bit of time to reserve that little bit of compassion that I still had for myself and get help. So that was the beginning of changing things. It was changing a belief system that I had about my responsibility for other people's behavior. Okay? And without creating that compassionate space for myself and prioritizing my own needs, wants, and desires, there was no way I could help other people with their needs, wants, and desires. I got to get caught up over here, so hold on, give me 1 second. Back to creating space, and here we are. Okay, so that's what I actually want you all to do today. we have a compassion fatigue toolkit. There's a link. You can access that. Specific things in which you can do. But today is really about reclaiming your purpose, is to really sit back and ask yourself and allow yourself to create a space and find your purpose again. We started out talking about what is it that you do, the work that you do, and now it's time to put it into words to reclaim that. It's when we've lost that purpose, because life gets busy, we have families, we have our own obligations, responsibilities, all that stuff. When that goes out the door, we've got to just come back. Because a part of a helping relationship and a part of a helping profession is to know that we're going to fall out. That's just a part of the road. That's a part of the journey we sign up for. And it's our job to be able to be aware of it, to pay attention to it, and get ourselves back on track. So in this next week, this is what I encourage you to possibly do. You can do a mindfulness exercise. I'm trained in dialectical behavior therapy. I love mindfulness-based things, so mindfulness really fits for me. So you can take 15 minutes, sit down, and ask yourself, what is my purpose? So you want to get in a space that doesn't have a lot of distractions. You want to do your breathing. And you're going to ask that question, what is my purpose? And you just sit, wait, and listen for the response. It will come up. If it doesn't come up in that first 15 minutes, that's okay. You do it again. And you keep doing it until it comes up. It will resurface. Or you can kind of create a mission statement. A mission statement for the work that you do. This is kind of what I did a combo of the mindfulness and mission statement is, what is it that I do and why I do? And so if you already have one, some of us are really good at this stuff, and we've already done that or did it, a long time ago. Get it out, dust it off, revise it. See how it's changed over the years. My mission statement then is a little bit different than it is now. I have different kinds of impact that I'm interested in creating in my work. And I don't spend as much time in the therapeutic office as I did at that time. Which was also paying attention to what am I capable of in terms of the energy and emotional energy that I can have show up in the people that I work with. Or you can simply do a free writing exercise and just start writing. What's the purpose of the work that you do, and just keep writing and writing and writing until you stop. It's really kind of seeing how your professional values show up in the work that you do. And so I encourage you to just pick a time this next week. Make a commitment to doing that and see where you're at. Other things that you can do, which is not the same stuff that's in the compassion fatigue toolkit, I made this up the other day, is here are some steps. The bottom line is check in with yourself regularly. We know when we get antsy or irritable or emotionally involved in something, maybe there's something up. We need to check in. Attend to your emotional self. Don't ignore it. Our emotions are very important, and they need to be nurtured. Reclaim your purpose. More importantly, make a commitment to yourself to do this. Create a plan and continuously reorient yourself to that plan. Because our plans change, and it's impossible to always have it in front of you. Life happens too quickly to always be 100% intentional in everything that we do. And when we notice we fall out, then we fall back in. Thank you.
So I've got a question that's come in here.
Excellent.
Person writes, you're very driven, which is wonderful. So given that you're not going to stop caring about your clients, how do you teach others to be caring for clients but not feel responsible for their acts?
Well, it's not an easy thing to teach. I think that's where we go, why it goes wrong. Because responsibility for another person, well, it's really problematic. I care deeply for everyone that I work with, but I also teach autonomy. That every person has a right to live the life they are living and the way that they choose to live it. I may not agree with everything. I may not want them to it. When somebody shows up in my office and they engage in chronic suicidality or self-injury, this is not something that I want people to engage in, because I've never seen anyone have a compassionate and happy life with these behaviors in it. And I cannot force them to change that, and I accept that. The separation between feeling responsible is about understanding how much we actually have control over another person's life and behaviors. I can't be. There's nothing, once you leave my office, I mean, short of like me moving in with you and kind of tying you down and, making sure you do exactly what I want, there's nothing I can do with that. But more importantly, everybody has a right to live the life the way that they choose, whether it's healthy or not healthy, because I don't look at it as good or bad. So part of it is experience. Learning that, the more you do that, the more you engage in behaviors that actually cause your clients to engage in the behaviors you don't want them to. We have a paradoxical effect when we are constantly acting to try to tell people what to do. So it's withholding that urge, and it's accepting that others and their behaviors are not my responsibility.
Also want to encourage people, if they have any further questions, to use the chat window underneath the video window and submit those questions. Also, if at any point you're going to want CEUs for today's program, we're going to keep that link available to you. It's time also for me to plug the Compassion Fatigue Kit, the Surviving Compassion Fatigue Kit. Ryan's referenced it a couple of times. There's a link to it under the video window, gives you a couple of samples of what's in it. It's a good resource kit for you if you feel like you may be experiencing compassion fatigue yourself, or if you work for an agency and your coworkers are showing signs and symptoms that you may be concerned about. There's a lot of information in here, some exercises, some other resources, some videos to go with it. If you go through our website, go through the link that's under this video window or through the link that's right on the front page, you can actually see a little demonstration of what's in here. Also, we forgot to raise the price, and so the introductory price is still listed there, so we'll hold that for a little while longer as well. Let me check to see if there's any more questions on that, on today's program. As a supervisor, how would you monitor compassion fatigue with your staff?
Got a couple options. I'm someone who makes it a part of the supervision process to ask about it. I don't always ask about it. My employee will tell you that. But I try to keep it in front of me. I want to pay attention to that. As a supervisor, my responsibility is to pay attention to, are my employees acting a little bit different than normal? Or when they show up in supervision, are they not asking for as much help as they used to? So do I notice changes in behavior that I need to actually check in with them? You can also incorporate, there's several like self-report checks that you can add into your supervision process or have your employees routinely take a look at. So as a supervisor, my job is to pay attention to it, but I work with the people I supervise to bring this up to me. Because we talk about this as being a normal part of the work that we do, and that in order for us to stay in it, we have to be encouraged to be able to bring it up. And so I myself try to model fallibility as much as I can, vulnerability, and through that modeling process, my supervisees feel comfortable coming to me and saying, I think this is what's going on. But more importantly, I'm attuned to them, and I know my employees enough that when they're off, there's something up, and I need to check in with that. If they haven't brought it up because of shame response or inhibited shame responses or fear responses or just they don't really know, they're not even actually aware of what's going on, they just know something's happening, then my job is really to try to drop in and have them check in on that.
And then as an educator, how would you include self-care in the curriculum early on?
I would have it in every piece that has to do, whenever I'm teaching anything that is therapeutic, I would have it involved in anything that's surrounded around emotions. When we're learning about what emotions are and what they do for us, how they function for us, when we are learning therapies, from a mental health perspective, someone might be doing something different, but we learn about emotions. And in that context, we have to pay attention, and I think that's a perfect place. We're better to say, be aware of your own emotions and use your own experiences as a way to drop in on that. And I think that it's not an easy thing because it's abstract a little bit, But in every way possible, as often, in all curriculum, you can figure out a way to drop this stuff in. So I don't think I have any like grand ideas, but I think there's a lot of ways to integrate that in across things and think outside of the box, as opposed to we need a module on compassion fatigue. What we need to is integrate this into the things we're already teaching, and bring up often over time how the things that we're teaching may impact you as a person. You know, it's kind of like we need to put the humanistic quality back into our education system so that we're not just always focused on these other people. Most of the time we are those people. So let's just be real. You know, and so we have to pay attention to that. So
Person works with organ donor services, folks who harvest organs from the deceased.
Yes.
Any thoughts on working with them to address compassion fatigue that might be different than for mental health providers?
Well, it's a very different place. And you're dealing with a highly emotional experience. And I don't know this person's specific job and if they're having contact with families and stuff. But when we see other people be in a lot of pain, it's also over and over and over. It's also natural for us to try to not feel that pain because it gets exhausting. And so the strategies that I tend to use are really about self-awareness. It's really about taking the time out and ask yourself, whose pain is this? And to acknowledge and accept and not try to change the fact that sometimes these are tragic and highly emotional situations. And so you can again, drop in how it, you know, from a supervisor perspective in that, and if that's, you know, what's going on, it's paying attention to that. But if it's you, it's knowing that when you see yourself withdraw and your caring go down, know that that's normal. And actually, maybe what you need is space. And it's very, 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 very important if you're in a helping profession to take your vacation, to take time off. And to take that time. When you start having multiple days, I don't want to go to work. Well, don't go to work. Because when you go to work, you're not present. When you don't show up in your work, you're less likely to be helpful. They're going to be there when you come back. And when you show up on this day is not going to change tomorrow necessarily. If you show up today crispy, that may change tomorrow. If you show up today impassioned and compassionate, then we can change tomorrow.
Folks, I don't see any further questions that have come in. I'd like to thank Ryan for his time once again today.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
I encourage you to check in with our website frequently for updates. Our next web conference is going to be after the first of the year. It's on January 9th. I encourage you to stay tuned to that. You'll get an email with an announcement of that as well, probably right after the first of the year. I probably won't send that out in the midst of the holiday rush. So thank you for your time today. Thanks for submitting questions to us. And Ryan, thanks for yours.
Thank you.